Welcome to the PCOS Fertility Health Podcast, where you will learn how to boost your chances of getting pregnant. You are in the right place if you have PCOS and you are struggling to get pregnant. You are tired of getting dismissive information like, just eat better and stay on birth control. And you want fertility answers. Join me, your host, Dr. Angela Potter, to learn key steps to optimize fertility with PCOS. I am the creator of the PCOS Fertility Protocol and have also shared the stage with leaders from companies like Microsoft and Google. So get ready for another powerful episode about boosting fertility with PCOS. Let's dive in. Today we're talking about the most efficient way to get pregnant with PCOS. And I'm here talking to you about this because too many people, and maybe yourself included, are getting really dismissive advice from their doctors. So, have you ever heard stuff like, every time you go into your doctor, they say to you, well, I can only prescribe you metformin until you lose weight. Or they say, you're infertile and the only way to treat your PCOS is to go back on birth control. Like, what? What? Go back on birth control? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So this is why I work with women like you who have PCOS, because too much of this misinformation is out there. And it's doctors who are saying these things. Not to put them down at all, because I think a lot of it just has to do with lack of time and really understanding, because as we're going to talk, PCOS is a syndrome. And so it doesn't fit into a box. And many doctors feel very comfortable when things fit into a box, because that means, one pill can treat one issue and that makes everything great. PCOS is a little more complex than that. And you know that because you're feeling it in your body. And I know that because I work with women day in and day out of my practice who have PCOS and are struggling with many different things. And I just want to take this time that you and I have together today to talk about, okay, but let's sort through this. Let's sort through all of the dismissive information, the misinformation. Like, when you get down to it, how can you create an effective fertility plan to get pregnant with PCOS? So, super excited to talk about this with you today. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, because you are what makes this podcast go around. And if you have questions or if you have some topics about PCOS fertility that you want to be sure that I cover on this podcast, then just send a quick email, info@drangelapotter.com. That will get to my team and I'll make an episode for you to answer your questions and get you the information that you need, okay? So creating not only efficient, but effective fertility plan for your PCOS requires a few different pieces. And we're going to dive into each of these today. Now, we've covered a little bit the issue, right? And the issue is that PCOS has these different elements to it. It is a syndrome. And so it doesn't respond to the one-size-fits-all model. Okay. And typically for PCOS, the one-size-fits-all treatments are going to be metformin or letrozole or Clomid, right? Metformin being the blood sugar balancer, Clomid and letrozole are the ovulation inductors. Now, it's not that those medications are bad. Not at all. They are super helpful for fertility. But the issue is that they're being used at the wrong time, and particularly the Clomid and letrozole. Because if you jump forward to using one of those ovulation induction medications, and you have not explored these other areas of your health that we're going to talk about today, then you're going into those cycles with a lower chance of them working. because you haven't optimized these other parts of your health that are important to boost your fertility chances. Great. So grab a pen, grab a notebook, take some notes. Let's dive in. So what you need is, all right, so I'm going to guide you through the process to set up an efficient and an effective treatment plan, because really all you want is to get your period, ovulate, and make a baby. Isn't that right? Yeah. Okay, so these steps are going to help you increase your chance is to get super clear on your PCOS diagnosis. And I have a whole episode about this, about the kind of the nitty gritty of PCOS. And it talks about the different elements of the PCOS diagnosis and how your doctor gets to that diagnosis for you. Now, unfortunately, some doctors will just tell you, oh, yeah, you have PCOS and, good luck. Or if you eat less than 500 calories a day, your PCOS will go away and I'll see you in 6 months kind of thing, right? Some doctors don't even tell their patients. I've heard these stories before that they'll say, yeah, my doctor didn't say anything about PCOS, but then I saw my treatment plan and they mentioned PCOS, or they referred me to another doctor and they said, yeah, this person has PCOS, and I didn't even know that. And so if you're in that space, or if you forget what your doctor told you, or, you haven't really sat down with them to understand what your PCOS diagnosis is, that's the first step. Because in order to get diagnosed with PCOS, you need to have at least 2 out of 3 criteria to get that diagnosis. You might also have all 3, right? And so you need to know which elements of PCOS are going on in your body that create that diagnosis. Because if you have elevated testosterone, which is one part of the diagnosis, but you do not have any ovulation issues, and yet you have the high testosterone and lots of cysts on your ovaries, that's going to be a different treatment plan than if you did also have the ovulation issues, okay? And that is why PCOS doesn't fit into the one size fits all picture, right? That makes sense, because you've got to target what's going on. So number 1, get clear on your PCOS diagnosis. Number 2 is to figure out your PCOS type. And this is taking your diagnosis to the next level. What this means, have you heard of the PCOS types? Some people have. There is more and more information about PCOS types, I will say, out there. But not everyone knows about this. So there's 4 different PCOS types. And how this is helpful for your fertility is because it takes you, again, to that next level of understanding what's happening in your body. So then your fertility plan can get that much more individualized and specific to your needs, right? Because that's the ticket when it comes to improving your chances with PCOS, is having something that is specific to what is going on in your body. Remember that, okay? So you've got your diagnosis, you know what makes that up. Then there are these 4 types of PCOS. Number 1, the first type, I'll just talk about them pretty quickly. The first type is insulin resistant. Now, I'm also going to have podcast episodes that talk about each type and go into more detail. But insulin resistant means blood sugar issues. Then there's adrenal PCOS, which means stress, too much stress, or your body's not reacting to the stress as it should be. Okay. There is post-pill PCOS, which is for people who have been on a hormonal birth control and then get off of that birth control. And lastly, there's inflammatory PCOS. So there's something else going on in the body that's causing inflammation. Maybe gut issues. Those are classic for raising inflammation. Maybe an autoimmune issue. The number 1 kind of co-diagnosis that I see with PCOS is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So an autoimmune condition of the thyroid. And that autoimmune condition is causing inflammation in the body and needs to be balanced in order to help improve fertility. Okay, so those are the 4 types of PCOS. Now, you've got your diagnosis, and then you figure out your type. It's not that you have to fit into one type, and you also don't have to be a mix of all of them. You could be anywhere in between, okay? What's important is figuring out which type you are, because that then helps you and it helps your fertility specialist that you're working with to really hone in on making those parts of your fertility health at the top of the list, okay? Because let's say insulin resistance is the one type that you fit into. You don't have much stress, you have never been on hormonal birth control, and it's been checked, and like no other inflammatory stuff is happening in your body. So you're just like you're insulin resistant. You have blood sugar, pre-diabetes, all the things, right? That needs to be the focus of your fertility plan to get that insulin lowered, because when insulin is elevated, that raises testosterone and it also lowers ovulation. Like it just shuts down ovulation from happening. So that's the importance of regulating insulin for fertility purposes. If you're someone who has adrenal PCOS, so lots of stress in your life, lots of anxiety, you don't feel like you can really get a hold of your stress, and you also were on the pill, hormonal birth control, for 5 years, right? Then your PCOS specialist is going to be focusing on your adrenal glands, supporting stress in your body, and also supporting your liver in this post-hormonal birth control place that your body is in, okay? So, do you see how each of these elements really opens up more possibilities for just like, targeted fertility plan for you, okay? And how important an individualized plan is for your fertility, and how those one-size-fits-all approaches, like just jumping straight to the ovulation meds, doesn't make much sense, right? Okay, so those are the first 2 things. Get clear on your diagnosis and figure out your PCOS type. Then the third thing is to understand what other imbalances and deficiencies are going on in your body. This is a pretty broad topic, but if you are working with a PCOS fertility specialist who understands what labs need to be run, and then you're going to get that view, right? So there's different hormone systems that are working in your body that are indirectly acting on your reproductive hormones like progesterone and estrogen. Thyroid is a big one. Cortisol is a big one. Blood sugar, because insulin is a hormone, okay? So these different hormones need to be evaluated to see what's going on. Different nutrient levels as well need to be looked at. Like, have you ever gotten your vitamin D levels tested? Have you gotten your iron levels tested or your vitamin B12 levels tested? Studies have looked at vitamin D levels and found that women who have PCOS and lower vitamin D actually have a lower live birth rate. And once that vitamin D is corrected, then the chance of getting pregnant and having a live birth just jumps right back up. So it's important to understand, okay, so yeah, I've got PCOS and I want to get pregnant, but if I just jump straight to trying letrozole and yet I have vitamin D deficiency, do you see how that it makes sense to bring your vitamin D levels up so you have sufficient vitamin D before trying that medication, and bringing that vitamin D level up and focusing on whatever your issues are that are creating the PCOS diagnosis and your PCOS types. I mean, that opens up the chance of getting pregnant naturally, of course. But if you do need to use a medication, like, you still are increasing your chances of that working. Okay. All right. And lastly, what you are going to need in your fertility plan in order to optimize your chances of getting pregnant is a plan that focuses on your egg quality, on improving your egg quality. And for whatever reason, this just keeps getting put on the wayside. And many even fertility clinics are not on the forefront of this information yet. And you need to have it. It's a pivotal part of your fertility plan if you want to increase your chances. So, egg quality, and that's another topic we will be talking a lot about on this podcast. But egg quality is about the ability of your eggs to mature and then ovulate, right? And then implant, make a baby like you intend it to. For a variety of reasons, from pollution, from toxins we're exposed to, from different stress levels that lower our antioxidants in the body. Each of these different things can cause an environment for your eggs so that they don't develop properly. And that's what egg quality is just talking about the quality of your egg so that it can get ovulated. And if it does ovulate, can it make a baby? Okay. But if you're deficient in certain nutrients that your eggs require, different antioxidants, different nutrients that your energy metabolism needs, your mitochondria, then your eggs might not be maturing as they need to be so that they can ovulate. That could be one of the barriers between you and having your baby. And so, of course, it needs to be a part of your PCOS fertility plan. And so making sure that when you're working with somebody to improve your fertility, are they talking to you about egg quality and what you can be doing, what nutrients need to be added to your plan in order to support egg quality, what foods you can be eating to support your egg quality? Okay, so let's sum it up here. Number one, you want to get crystal clear on your PCOS diagnosis. Number two, you want to figure out your PCOS type. Both of those are going to give you that really direct information on what needs to be treated. And same with number three as well. So number three is going to be checking for other deficiencies and imbalances that are happening in your body. So I really hope at this point you can just kind of take a nice deep breath and say, wow, like, this is some concrete information that I can move forward with in order to help increase my chances of getting pregnant. So thank you so much for being here. If you are loving this show, please leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts, because that lets this podcast just continue to be going, and for your friends and other people who need to hear this information get access to it. Okay? Blessings to you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to be on this platform with you and to have you in this community. So thank you. As we wrap things up today, I want to share the legal language with you. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not replace the medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment given to you by your doctor.